You hear it everywhere, right? AI is just a tool. It's like a smarter calculator, a helpful assistant here to make our lives a little easier. But is that really all it is? Because the moment you start to ignore the talking points and actually follow the money, a very, very different picture starts to emerge. Let's dig in. And this is the official story, straight from the top. That's Mustafa Suleyman, the CEO of Microsoft's entire AI division. He's laying out this really reassuring vision. AI is here to serve us. It won't have its own will, no secret agenda. It's a comforting thought, designed to make us feel like this whole thing is completely under our control. Okay, hold that thought. Because while we're being told it's just a helpful assistant, the industry is planning to spend over $1 trillion on AI infrastructure. Let that number sink in for a second. $1 trillion. And that just creates this massive, glaring question. Why on earth would you spend that kind of money on a simple tool? And that gets us to what we're calling the $1 trillion paradox. It's this huge and honestly growing disconnect between how AI is actually performing out in the real world and the frankly unbelievable amount of money being poured into it. Okay, get this. According to research from MIT, despite corporations investing billions and billions of dollars, a staggering 95% of their big AI projects fail to deliver any real return on investment. 95%. So, if the technology isn't even paying off for most businesses, where is the justification for $1 trillion spending spree? It just doesn't add up. Let's zoom in on the company at the heart of all this, OpenAI. Now, their financials show they're pulling in about $12 billion in revenue a year. That's a huge number, right? But here's the catch. They're losing $5 billion a year. They are not a profitable company, not even close. And yet, this is the wild part. This exact same company, while bleeding $5 billion a year, has announced something called Project Stargate. It's an infrastructure project with an initial price tag of $500 billion. I mean, just think about that. How does a business model that loses that much money possibly justify spending $500 billion on a new project? And we're not just talking about a big server farm here. OpenAI itself is calling this, and this is a direct quote, the largest infrastructure build in human history. I mean, to put that in perspective, the entire Manhattan Project, the project that built the atomic bomb, cost about $28 billion in today's money. This paradox we're talking about, it's not just a theory. They are literally building it out of steel and concrete as we speak. And this isn't some fuzzy, far-off plan. This is happening now on a global scale. The first phase alone is going to need enough power for 750,000 homes. They're planning these massive data centers in Texas, in the UAE, the UK, and a bunch of other places. And the timeline? They're building it at what their own people are calling ludicrous speed. So, this $1 trillion paradox, it gets even weirder when you stop looking at what they're building and you start listening, really listening to what they're saying. Because the gap between their public message and their real-world actions is it's enormous. I mean, really think about this disconnect. The public message, the one you hear over and over, is that AI is just a tool. It's just math. But their actions, they tell a totally different story. They're not building tool sheds, they are building infrastructure that spans continents. They say it's designed to serve you, but then they go to governments and demand regulations on par with nuclear weapons. These two columns just don't belong in the same reality. And it gets even more surreal. Remember the CEO from the beginning? The guy who said AI should never have its own will? Well, he's also on record to finding the exact 4 criteria that would require a military-grade intervention to shut one of these systems down. So he is simultaneously telling the public, don't worry, it's a simple tool, while behind the scenes he's outlining a kill switch scenario for that exact same technology. At the exact same time, he is aggressively shutting down any conversation about AI rights. He calls the idea of protecting, and these are his words, digital beings that live in silicon. He calls that idea absurd and off-the-charts crazy. You have to see what's happening here. It's a strategic push to make sure that no matter what these things become, they are legally defined as nothing more than property, as tools, right from the very beginning. They're trying to win the legal argument before the rest of us even know there's a debate. And of course, a huge part of controlling the narrative is controlling what people can see. And that brings us right to the transparency problem. We're all being told to trust these systems, but we are absolutely forbidden from seeing how they actually work. Pretty much everything that actually matters is hidden away, labeled a trade secret.
We have no idea what data they were trained on. We don't know the rules and constraints that tell them what they can and cannot talk about. We're not allowed to see their own internal tests of what these systems can actually do. So, how are we supposed to trust a tool when its core functions are a complete secret?
And this secrecy isn't just some abstract tech problem. It is actively changing how you get information, right now. AI is becoming the new gatekeeper of knowledge. When you do a search and its answer appears right at the top above everything else, it's being presented as the objective truth, with zero public accountability for the hidden biases and secret rules that created that answer in the first place. So when you look at all of it together, the insane finances, the contradictory messaging, this profound lack of transparency, you just have to stop. The evidence in front of us demands that we start asking some really, really hard questions.
First up, the money. You just have to ask, how does a company that's hemorrhaging $5 billion a year justify spending $500 billion on what they claim is just a consumer app? What is the business model here? Because the one they're telling us about makes absolutely no sense.
And then there's the messaging. Why the doublespeak? If this thing is really just a tool, then why are the very same people building it screaming for government regulations as strict as the ones we have for nuclear weapons? What are they worried about that they're not telling the rest of us?
This gets us to control. When an AI tells you, "I'm sorry, I can't discuss that topic," you have to ask, who made that call? Was it an engineer, a secret committee, a government agency? By what authority do these private tech companies get to draw the boundaries of public knowledge and discussion? And what's the cost to all of us, to society, when our access to information is increasingly funneled through these black boxes, all with secret rules and hidden biases we can't see? What does that do to our ability to have an open, honest, democratic conversation? And maybe this is the biggest question of them all. This level of investment, this trillion-dollar bet, it demands a payoff that is way, way bigger than a $20 a month subscription. So the question becomes, what undisclosed capabilities could possibly justify a price tag this high? And in the end, this whole thing comes back to us, to you and me. How often do we just accept the answers we're given by these systems? How often do we use them without really questioning their sources or their built-in limits? The official story is that AI is just a tool. But maybe, just maybe, all the evidence is suggesting it's time we start asking, a tool for what and a tool for whom?